Hi, so here's a quick algebra question. Okay, this is question 28 from one of the tests off of my website, www.qtsmaths.com. Question 27 on the test is exactly the same table, and I'm going to cover that question as well. So I'm actually just going to write a little 27 here, and I'm going to do the question before, but because it's the same table, I'm not going to copy it in twice. Okay, so what we're going to do in question 27 is we're going to work out Jack's forecast for A-level point score. Okay, so you can see really that's this missing number in the table here. Okay, then we've got a formula up the top here, and we've just got to do stuff in the right order. Okay, so I'm just going to copy this formula out. Total GCSE point score. Okay, oh, just bear with me. Okay, and then that's all in a fraction. Okay, number of GCSEs. Excuse my squiggly writing on the screen there, but you can probably hopefully see the equation over there. And then after that we subtract 65. Okay, and that's really the important thing to teach you here, is that everything in this fraction here needs to be done first, and then we subtract 65. Okay, we mustn't subtract the 65 in the middle and then divide by the number of GCSEs. We're really obeying the rules of BIDMAS. Okay, but BIDMAS, I'm not even going to try and explain BIDMAS here because it can be misunderstood and misinterpreted very easily. Okay, so we're going to do the fraction first, okay, and then we're going to subtract 65 from that score. Okay, so if we look at Jack, he got 59. His total GCSE point score was 59. So what we're going to have at the top is 15, okay, and then when you've got a number next to a bracket, it basically means multiplication. So it means 15 times this bracket. It's like an invisible times sign here. Okay, so it's going to be 15 times 59, and then we divide by the number of GCSEs that Jack took, which is 6. Okay, and then as I say, the minus 65 afterwards. Just ignore the minus 65 and you work this bit out. Okay, now I'm just going to grab my calculator. Just press the wrong button there, just bear with me. Excuse me. Okay, so 15 times 59. Okay, best to probably just press the equals sign after that. So that's 885. Okay, divided by 6. Okay, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a whole number. So we've got 147.5. Okay, so we've worked out the fraction. Then we subtract the 65. Sorry to keep going on about it, but this is the main mistake with this question, would be to do the 65 subtraction in the wrong place. Okay, so back to our calculator, 147.5 subtract 65. Okay, so we get a final answer of 82.5. Okay, so that would be the answer to question 27. Okay, now question 28 is asking about Katie's total GCSE point score. So you can see from the table, let's just do this in a different colour if I can. I'm not very used to this new whiteboard that I'm using here. Okay, if you look at Katie's table, the question mark is kind of over here. The missing number is over here. And what that means really is that we need to kind of work backwards. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of write the fraction, and well, you'll see what I'm going to do in a second. Okay, so it's 15 times. Okay, and then it's this thing that we don't know. It's like a question mark. Okay, and then we've got number of GCSEs taken is 9. Okay, and then again we would just subtract 65. Now the difference is this time we know what the answer is. We know the answer is 40. Okay, and the important thing for any algebra really is to work backwards. Okay, we need to work backwards here. Now if you look at question 27 and you think about, well, what did we do last? The last thing I did on my calculator was to subtract 65 from some number here. So if we're going backwards, okay, we would need to add 65. Okay, so what we're going to have is we're going to have this fraction again, okay, which I'm just copying down. I'm not doing anything with it. Okay, and I need to add the 65 to the 40. Okay, I'm going to write this out in a slightly different way in a second, which might make a little bit more sense as to the order that we do it. But really, you should just be thinking we're going backwards. Okay, so I added 65 to the answer of 40. Okay, then in our fraction here, the last thing that we did in that fraction was to divide by 6. So the opposite of divide by a number is to times by a number. So we're going to get 15 times by, okay, well, we're going to have to take that 105 and we're going to have to times it by 9, because the opposite of division is multiplication. Okay, so we get 15 times some number equals 945. Okay, don't worry if this is a little bit confusing at the moment. I'm going to write it out in a slightly better way in a minute. Okay, and then the next step would be, if we've got 15 times some number equals 945, if we want to go backwards, we'd do a division. So it would be 945 divided by 15. And let's just grab the calculator, bring that in. 945 divided by 15. Okay, so Katie scored 63. The 63 would be in here. Okay, now I think unless you're doing algebra in GCSE and you're used to going backwards and the rules of algebra, I think this can be quite difficult to follow. Okay, so I'm just going to, just bear with me a second while I clear the screen. Normally I would click clear all, but it will clear the question at the top there, so just bear with me a second, just make a bit of space. Okay, and I'm just going to really do exactly the same as we've just done, but I'm just going to write it in a different way. Okay, so we'll go back to what we did for Jack. Okay, I'm going to take the 59, okay, and we times it by 15. Okay, and this is really like step 1. Okay, and this gave us a number. Okay, it doesn't really matter what the number was. I think it was 885, but it doesn't really matter. Okay, step 2, okay, was then to divide that by 6. Okay, and then step 3 was to subtract 65. Okay, and we got, I'm going to put a number 4 in here. It's not really a step, but this, at point 4 we get the answer. Okay, so for Jack this was, I think it was 885, then we divided by 6 and we got 147.5, and then we subtracted the 65, okay, and we got the answer of 82.5. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to now go backwards, but we can kind of write this in a better way now. We can go from right to left instead of from left to right. So, Katie, I'm going to start at the right hand end. Okay, she's got an answer of 40, if that makes sense. Her forecast for A-level point score was 40. Okay, now at each step I'm going to do opposites. Okay, the opposite of subtract 65 is to add 65. There we go. Okay, we'll work it out in a minute. I'm just going to put the steps in. Okay, so we've gone from here to here. Now when we go to here, okay, we do the opposite of this. Okay, now I'm not going to divide by 6. Sorry, I'm not going to times by 6 because 6 came from the table here. We need to pick the correct number for Katie. It was her number of GCSEs taken. Okay, so we would times by that number. Okay, and then the rest of the formula is the same as for Jack. Okay, now the key thing here is that you take a number and it's times by 15, so the opposite of that is divide by 15. Okay, so we can put this in our calculator now. Well, I'm not going to put it in the calculator because we kind of did it just a second ago, but you can do that to double check. So I start at 40, I add 65, that's going to give us 105, then I times by 9, that gives us 945. Okay, and then I divide by 15, and that gave us 63, if I remember rightly. Yes, that sounds right. Okay, and there's your answer. Okay, it's a tricky question. Okay, 6 months ago, I mean, it's November 2017 at the moment. 6 months ago, no algebra in the test. Maybe slightly longer, maybe 8 months ago, there was no algebra in the test at all. They are putting some algebra in the test, so you need to be able to go forwards, okay, with an equation. Okay, so this is an equation up here. You need to be able to go forwards, okay, but you may well need to be able to go backwards as well, and that's really all that algebra is about. Okay, hope that helps.